What's happening, everybody? So I'm here in Burlington North, Milton West, and I'm actually just going to go visit another candidate right now because we're going to talk about some of the firearm policy that's going on right now in Canada, and just to give everyone a little bit of an understanding what the PPC's position is right now, that we actually want to have more sensible firearm legislation. We think it's very important. We trust Canadians. We think that their rights are being infringed upon, and more importantly, we actually see this as a much broader property rights issue, which is going to impact people at large. Now, depending whether you're a firearm owner or not, you may have a car, for example. Now, what happens if they want to ban your car one day? Well, we're going to dive deep into some of the property rights issues and some of the misconceptions that are going on, and we want to debunk a couple things in our conversation. If you're a hunter and you're losing your property, you know how serious this is. For all you non-hunters, guess what? You might have to become a hunter the way things are going. All right, so we're bringing out some of the fun stuff to talk about, and just so everyone knows, we have checked to make sure that everything is indeed safe, that we are practicing our Axe and Prove. Everything is safe.
You know what? I've been forced to counter the liberal narrative that more guns equals more crime. Well, my good friend here that I've known for many years, John Lott, he's an American, he's come out with several books basically showing that that is not the case. Showing that more guns actually is less crime.
Actually, one of my favorite watches that I have, it's a Hamilton Field Khaki Mechanical, which was used in World War II, which I thought would be very appropriate because we're talking about firearms today, and we have a firearm on the table which was used in World War II. And we're actually joined today with my buddy and neighboring candidate here, Charles Zach, and he is in Burlington
North, Milton West.
Burlington North, Milton West.
Remember BMW.
Exactly. So if you're a Beamer, if you're a guy that drives a Beamer or a gal, I guess, then maybe you should consider voting for Charles. And so,
No, I'm a retired gun lobbyist, so I've been doing this for a long time. So I have a lot of insight, I have a lot of expertise on the matter, and a lot of experience to talk to. I talk with Pierre. Unfortunately, I didn't talk to a lot of the liberals because they don't want to listen to the facts. But anyway, I leave it at that. I've been a lifelong hunter as well too, probably for 45 years.
All you hunters out there.
Right, over the course of, the last 25 years that I've been involved, we've lost a lot of guns in the watch of the gun lobby, okay?
That's true, we have, yeah.
It is, it's unfortunate, and the problem with this is that there's a lot of people with guns out there. As JD will attest to, we have 2.1 million or so people with PALs.
Yeah.
Okay, but prior to 1995, we had something like 4 to 5 million people in Canada who declared to have firearms.
And Charles will actually, for a lot of first-time firearm owners, they tend to gravitate towards this being their very first one. Charles, do you want to explain maybe why people want to do that?
Sure. This is called the SKS. This particular model is, I think this one's my Chinese. No, this is the Russian one, right? So this is a great little rifle. Originally, it was a battle rifle, a so-called assault rifle.
An assault rifle, guys. I thought that when it's black, it's an assault rifle. Isn't that how it works usually?
Well, that's what the liberals want you to believe, and the various government-funded anti-gun groups out there, like Police Civilian. They are paid. They're actually paid to lobby the government about what they want to talk about. It's a crazy thing. So a gun is not an assault rifle because it's black. Okay, so there's actually a definition in Canada for an assault rifle. Okay, and this is a select fire rifle that's primarily restricted to the military and now the police.
So can I put a 30 round clip in there and it's going to go bang, 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 bang automatically? Also, another thing too, which I think is worth mentioning, a lot of clips now are not really a clip anymore. We don't use clips. We use magazines. On older firearms, we use clips. So that's a lot of misconception as well too. So part of that is also making sure the language is correct so we understand what we're talking about here. So
this actually does take clips as well.
This one does. That's correct. Yes.
So there's they used to push it in from the top, and they called it a clip. So it takes a clip.
It's wooden,
Yes.
and it's not black, so we can eliminate that from the process. So, and it's not an automatic machine gun either,
No.
right? So, okay, so why does the other political parties want to demonize this firearm specifically? Why do they want to go after this one? What is the reason?
Well, you know what? They're lying to you, actually. They're trying to demonize you and scare you. So, everybody's seen the Hollywood shoot 'em up films, which are completely ridiculous. Okay, so, or the maniac, that's doing shootings, etc. Yes, we've had mass shootings. Okay, but those are not lawful people, ethical people, moral people. Okay, those are miscreants and violent criminals. Just because they happen to have a gun, whatever the gun it is, doesn't mean that they're like us. We are not. We are not. We are end game of the anti-gun factions here in Canada. It's not gun control. It's not even public safety, right? It is wholesale civil disarmament of civilians in Canada. Canada has a long heritage of private gun ownership, way before even a confederation was formed, and it's going to be here long after those anti-gun groups fade into history as well too.
So if we ban this, this is not going to stop gun crime, right?
Well,
or will it?
Look at the record. Okay, so I know a lot of people are not going to want to listen to the facts, but here they are. Okay, so the Justin Trudeau Liberals have been on a tear, and they prohibited a lot of guns. Okay, not this one yet. Carney probably will. Okay, and he'll have to if he gets in. But what's the result of all these new regulations, C-71, C-21, and the gun bans, right? Well, we've seen a 50% increase in violent crime across Canada.
But I thought more gun control means that we are going to have safer streets.
Well, actually, it's the complete opposite.
Oh, okay.
But safe.
So since this is no longer considered a assault rifle, would you consider this to be better for self-defense, or would it be better for hunting, for example, or even sport shooting? What do you think?
Yes, and yes.
Okay, wonderful.
So, firearms are all those things, right? So, the indigenous people, like I said, they use the SKS because it's cheap, and the 30 cal round that it delivers to the target is very effective for big game, moose and deer. Excellent.
So this is a good starting hunting rifle then for people.
Great.
Right? Yeah.
My first one was actually more Army surplus. It was the Lee Enfield Mark III from 1918. It was a beauty. Shot also a 30 cal 303 round, and that actually saw war. Okay, so another assault rifle, but that one happened to be bolt action. Everything else, and we used to see the reports going into the ATT, the Arms Trade Treaty. Canada would report how many assault rifles that it would sell to other nations. And it's a select firearm that fires semi-automatic, full automatic, and also one shot at a time. Okay, those guns were banned back in 1977. I used to go to machine gun shoots, and it was a picnic. But to call this thing an assault rifle, or call an AR-15 an assault rifle, is a lie.
Even back, let's say, we're going to get to this one in a moment, but in World War II, the assault rifles at that time were bolt action, and one of the ones that was revolutionary at the time was the M1 Garand that the United States was using, and it was actually invented by a Canadian. But all modern firearms now, a lot of them are focusing on a semi-automatic action. Would you say that's correct now, or yeah?
Well, once again, it depends on what you're going to be using it for, right? So if you're doing, target practice or something like that, yes, you can use bolt or you can use semi, okay? But there's some hunting situations where you might have to have a quick follow-up shot. The game starts to move, and you need to be able to pick that target up quickly so that it doesn't go into the bush and your harvest is lost. So a quick follow-up action.
So do you think Canadians are safe then with firearms, or do you think that they're not so safe?
We've always been safe, right? Like I said, we've never been the problem, right? There's criminal miscreants out there that abuse everything. Knives, vans,
absolutely.
Hammers, machetes,
yeah.
Right? So, banning the tool of somebody who has disregard for life or, for the rules and laws of the land is not going to do anything. They have a different type of ethos.
And everything, you mentioned it actually a tool, and I would say, my father always used to tell me every tool has a purpose. Would you agree that firearms are a tool then, or?
That's exactly what they are.
Absolutely,
right?
yeah.
Right. So
you don't misuse them.
Everybody says, "Oh, why do I need a pistol?" Because it's fun. It's fun, right?
Something else that gets brought up a lot. Why does anyone need more than one firearm, or why would you need a firearm at all? Like, maybe you can answer that.
Sure. Actually, my wife asks me about this all the time. She goes, "Charlie, how many guns do you actually need?" I'm going, "Well, how many boots do you actually need?" Okay, so if I want to buy guns, because that's my interest, and I'm not causing any harm, and it's within the regulation, etc., etc. What's wrong with that, right? The topsy-turvy thing of that is that now we have the state regulating what I can and cannot buy, what I cannot think, and what I have to eat, and how I teach my children. Everything else is an obtrusive thing. I'm a free man, and
For now we are.
Yes, but I reject that whole idea. The state has no business in my life this way. The firearms issue is a core example of that, okay? So bad laws raises the ire of the people who are affected, right?
Mm-hmm.
And of course, it's going to generate civil resistance all the way up into civil disarm or civil disobedience.
And I remember actually an MP a few months ago, I think it was a Liberal, who was mentioning how she used to take her .22 long rifle with her grandfather, and they would hunt moose with that. So since we're talking about appropriate tools for the job, do you think a .22 long rifle would be an appropriate firearm for everyone, and then we can ban everything else? Because the .22 long rifle can accomplish all the jobs you need. Would you say that's correct, or what do you think?
So what she said was actually completely wrong, and she's not a firearms person and ignorant of the whole subject. So yes, there's circumstances where if you're a really good shot with a .22, there was an indigenous woman that actually took down a grizzly bear with a .22. I get that. Okay,
that's pretty impressive.
Yes, but that's not your average bear. Okay,
mm-hmm. Or your average shooter.
Or the average shooter.
Right.
You need the right tool for the circumstance. So, a moose, anything, I'm going to say that anything 30 cal or above is necessary to have a humane harvest of that game. Anything lower than that actually is illegal because it just hurts the animal and they run away, and you don't want that.
So in Canada, we have a system where we have a non-restricted, a restricted, and also prohibited, which are a lot of firearms now. So on the table, what would you say is prohibited, restricted, and non-restricted now?
So let's make a distinction. Okay, so this is a handgun, and this is a semi-automatic rifle. Gun is non-restricted. That means you just have your basic PAL, and you can go out and get this. This gun right now is quasi-prohibited. Justin Trudeau, I can still take this to the range and everything else. It's a 45 cal. This would be 10 times more deadly than the 45, right? So once again, the regulations are nonsensical, right?
Recently, which I think, was it in your riding or was it nearby?
It was up in Milton.
It was in Milton, that's right. And the judge actually ruled that it was favorable for him to have used it for self-defense. So it comes another question too. We've talked about violent offenders, and they're still carrying handguns. A lot of them are people, going to a store and purchasing these before they're shooting each other. Like, what's happening exactly?
So none of those people have a license. None of them have any kind of moral character or ethics. They're criminals. By definition, criminals do not obey the law. So any law does not apply to them because they choose not to abide by them.
So can we make a law that's going to apply to them then?
Never. Okay, so that's the whole definition of a criminal, meaning that I'm an outlaw.
More guns is not going to make us safer from criminals.
And it doesn't. So there's multiple studies out there where they've banned guns before, New Zealand, Australia, elsewhere, even in the UK as well too. And the banning of guns and gun control has had very minor effects on violent crime. Usually there's a displacement, like in the UK, there's less violent gun crimes, but now it's become the murder capital of knifing on the earth. So, homicide is homicide.
So let's say that one day you want to pass on this one to me. Would you be allowed to do that?
Right now, no. So the current ban that came by order in council, which is basically an edict that came down from the prime minister, right? He didn't have to take any votes. There was no discussion about this with Parliament. He just made it into law like a king. Okay, so he basically said that handguns are now, the market is now closed. So we can't import handguns anymore. I cannot transfer my handgun to JD if I wanted to. I cannot even pass it on to my next of kin if they don't have the same licensing, and even that's kind of thing. So what they're doing, it's a slow motion roll of civil disarmament again. They want to eliminate handguns from the market and from the possession of civilians, and that's the end game.
And he felt that it was not safe to keep his firearms in the house because of this individual. Can he now transfer his handgun to another buddy of his that you can trust? What happens in that situation?
At this point in time, you still can't. Okay, so you have to make the RCMP aware that there's some kind of a security risk to your property, and you'll have a consultation with them. Okay, but every firearm owner, I practice the same thing here too. My house is very safe.
Now, it seems that most firearm owners are actually pretty safe people. Do you have anything you want to add on to that as well to help explain to people?
You know what? Firearms owners they're wonderful people. Okay, so like I said, I got into shooting because I love the precision of the sport. Right? You sit there and you hone this craft. It's like archery or pool. Right? There's a precision to it. I enjoy that part of it. So these people that have firearms, they've been demonized unjustly demonized and unjustly criminalized by this government, right? As being some kind of safety threat, a safety security concern for the country, and also convoluting us with the miscreant violent criminals out there that do misuse their illegal guns that are pouring across this border, despite all the rhetoric that the liberals, top-ins, or small arms, light weapons manufacturer in the universe, and our border is completely porous. They keep talking about, we're going to bolster the border and everything else. It's going to be impossible, right? And if they go full prohibition, this will only exacerbate the situation, right? The black market will supply the demand that's going to be up here in Canada, and it won't be regulated. So you're going to have real machine guns coming across the border, right? And you won't know who has them and, where they go.
Usually they're not getting a PAL, they're not getting a safety course done. So how would you say they're getting their firearms?
Well, it's being smuggled in illegally. It's big money.
One of the big political parties right now is mentioning something about gun trafficking. Now, I know myself from the course we've taken, what would happen if my license were to expire and I was not able to renew it because maybe, let's say, I was moving or something else was happening. What would happen to me then under that new legislation?
Well, it's a pretty serious thing. Okay, so and this happened to many people. I've dealt with many people in the past in my previous career, where yes, their firearms license would lapse. Usually a lot of seniors. Okay, so they're having some issues with age. Forget to renew their PAL. In the meantime, they have firearms, etc., etc. Now, the consequence of that, if you don't, renew your PAL in a timely fashion, is a criminal offense. If you don't renew your driver's license, what happens with that? You get a fine. You don't go to jail. And then the propaganda that comes on top of this, trying to make me look like something that I'm not, that I'm some kind of I'm the source of the problem. I say that it is our irresponsible, unresponsive liberal government that is the problem.
The PAL has lapsed by 1 day, are now considered gun traffickers, and they're talking about more serious punishment for them now. So would that mean you're a criminal then all of a sudden?
Yes. Well, that's a really good point. So not just the liberals, but the conservatives have also abused the whole intent of the criminal code. It's meant to protect your core human rights, your right to life, for instance. Okay, but if it's a paper crime, they've actually hoisted it into the criminal code now, so that if it lapses and you happen to have guns, yes, under a new definition of gun trafficker, it's somebody who doesn't have a license.
So we're clear. You have your license, it expires, you're now a gun trafficker.
Yep, could happen. Yep.
And you could go to jail for maybe even life. That's what they're talking about now.
Anonymously. And then I have to defend myself in court, right? Spend usually about $50,000-$60,000, to defend myself. I'll be found innocent, but the process is part of the punishment. How dare I have a firearm, right? So, they'll give me the gears legally, financial, and everything else, and send a message out there to everybody else. I'm going, oh well, is it really worth it? It is. Okay. This is not a gun. This is a symbol of freedom in my business.
I've been to every province in Canada, except for PEI. I'm going there next. What I've seen is that Canadians have a very different lifestyle throughout the entire country, and it varies from province to province. I will say, though, that people who live in rural Canada, wherever you are, they seem to have more of a favorable outlook on firearms as a tool and a way of life. So for some people that are, let's say, living in the bush, would you say that hunting is a way of survival for them?
Absolutely. I mean, I hunt every year. I go up to northern Ontario. I'm in the boreal forest, and it can be a dangerous place. I've been stalked by cougars, and I've been stalked by bears. So if I didn't have the tool in hand to defend myself, things threats, right? And you need to defend not only yourself, but if you're farming, these predators will come for your livestock, and you need to protect your private property. Wrong. All the guns basically are from Windsor to Quebec. And that makes sense, because this is where the bulk of the population is in Canada, but this is where all the guns are as well too, right? So, and I know that may be alarming to a lot of different people, but there's millions and millions of guns in this area. If it was really a problem, you'd probably know it.
So all those Canadians with those firearms in that condensed area like you talked about, it doesn't seem like the math adds up for the gun stats we have when it comes to shootings, which is what seems to be pushed in the media continuously. So where's the imbalance then? How does that work?
Like I said, this has got nothing to do with evidence or truth. They are on a tear to disarm Canadians. They're not interested in, they'll lie, they'll cheat, they'll do anything they can to get this going right. I don't know if you just heard, there was the culling of deer out west, and they were using prohibited firearms to actually do this, that for hunting purposes, but the Liberals said it's not for hunting purposes, but they contracted a contractor who used those prohibited firearms to actually do the same thing, proving our point that all these guns are viable hunting tools, and trying to redefine them as something else is a lie.
So let's help educate a little bit. What is this called?
So this magazine?
That's a magazine. So that is not a clip.
Not a clip.
Okay.
Unfortunately, the Liberals exploit the general population's ignorance on firearms, and to scare you, and of course to vote according to the weird laws that they're bringing in. So I implore everybody out there, right? I mean, educate yourself on everything.
Oh, okay, so that's good. So we know this is a magazine, not a clip. So does a magazine that can carry more, does that mean it's more dangerous, or like how does that work exactly? Because that's what we keep hearing. We keep hearing 30 round clips, but again, it's a 30 round magazine. So
right now this is unloaded. It's been made safe.
We did check to make sure these are safe, by the way. So yeah.
But without any bullets in it. You know what this is? It's an expensive paperweight. Okay, so, and if I have the gun there, guess what? It's not going to do any kind of violent crime. Whether or not it has 5 bullets in it, or 30 bullets in it, or whatever it is in there, right? That's not the point. Okay, the point is this is an inanimate object, and it only works with the operator. It can be used for good and for bad. And we see situations like that all the time, right?
This firearm was used in World War II. Not this one specifically. This is a newer model. But would this be considered an assault rifle then, or an assault weapon, as we're hearing about now?
Not right now, but anything's possible with the Liberals. They love to redefine things in ridiculous ways to push the agenda. So yes, I'm sure they are famous for coming up with ludicrous redefinitions of something, that don't make any sense. But what they'll do is it'll resonate with some ignorant voters out there that don't know the difference. They'll exploit that and then make hay of it and turn it into a wedge issue or a voting marketing scheme and everything else. Once again, it's another lie.
So a majority of the crimes, I would assume, are not being made with any older firearms. They're probably using much newer ones now. But now let's say hypothetically we added a scope on this, or a stock, or we took the stock off this one. Would that make any of these firearms more dangerous now or less dangerous? What do you think?
The short answer is no. Okay, so the stock is furniture. Okay, so like JD said before, there's a lot of other stocks out there that are made of synthetic materials, carbon fiber or plastic even.
So that's not more dangerous then?
No.
Okay.
No, but
yeah, we're making sure.
Once again, if you have a disingenuous government that says, "Oh, we don't want black guns," and it happens to have a synthetic black stock, right? They target that, for basically for prohibition, and they need reasons to do that, right? So that is once again another lie. Okay, the furniture does not make any difference. I've got 22s that have assault style furniture on it. It's still a 22. It fires a 22 cal acceptable. In their view, they're making a political decision. This is not based on any kind of science. It's based on ideology, and the end game, like I said before, is civil disarmament. Okay, everybody should be afraid of that word, right? And a lot of people laugh at me. Oh, it can never happen here. It's happened elsewhere before, and the outcome is never good for the people that are disarmed.
So would you say, for people who are not firearm owners, does this become more of a property issue? Maybe some people would want to know, are we banning hunting rifles in Canada? Would you say that's true or false?
Absolutely they are.
Now, unfortunately. Yes, it is true. They are banning hunting rifles. People who do live in more rural areas are for sure being impacted by this type of legislation. And they keep moving the goalposts now. And there is no real consultation because a lot of this is being done by order in council. There's some new rules they were discussing about if you want to become an Olympic sport shooter with a handgun. What happens now exactly since they've now banned handguns in Canada? How does that work?
So it's kind of a funny situation. So they still recognize handgun shooting as an Olympic sport here in Canada. So, and that's all fine and dandy for people who are already in the stream, meaning that they spent many, many years, starting off maybe with a 22 or something like this, developing their skill and their craft and their precision, right, to get to the point where they could compete in the Olympics. Well, because new young people cannot buy a handgun now, right, that stream has now been cut off.
I think I want to mention that we haven't talked about yet was about the new gun ban and going and seizing all these firearms. So they talked about a mandatory buyback that you will be compensated. So do you think, Charles, that they're going to offer a fair market value for these firearms, or is it going to be under or over? Are you going to get it at a premium? What do you think?
Well, they've already floated a couple of lists with prices, and they'll undercut us, right? Most of the provinces don't even want to participate in this.
Yeah.
The Toronto Police Association just came out and said that we are not going to help the federal government with any kind of gun seizures or whatever.
Gun collectors. How many firearms are there out there in Canada, would you say?
Well, nobody really knows. Okay, so
that seems like a lot, Charles.
It's millions. It's millions.
Some people who don't own firearms that need a quick summary to understanding what's happening, what would you say to them? At
one point the government was on our side, no longer, right? They are now telling us what to do and using lies to do it.
Charles, thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Absolutely.
My pleasure.
Cheers.